everyone, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's in-person Monday, June 23rd meeting. I think it's been a while since we've all been in person. Also a while since we had an afternoon meeting. So I'd like to begin the meeting by do we still need to do a roll?
You don't have to do a roll call, no.
See, I'm out of practice. All right. So the first item of business is citizens' comments. Okay, there being none, we're ahead of schedule. I'm going to move to item 1.1. And actually today is a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Assessors. And the purpose of the joint meeting is to appoint Robert G. Cox Jr., a.k.a. Bob Cox, to the Board of Assessors for a term that will expire on May 18th, 2026, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11. So I am going to turn this over to the Assistant Town Assessor.
Before we do that, Corey, I just would have the Board of Assessors, the two current members, if you could call your meeting to order, just for the record. Just so that, because you're actually meeting as a body today. Perfect.
Okay. And the meeting was called to order by Charlie Long. Are you the chair, Charlie?
Today.
He's the ranking member.
For 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, so I have a quick question. Why does Bob's term expire May 18th and not the end of the fiscal year?
So the term runs through the next annual election.
Okay.
That's
right.
why.
Okay. All right. It's all yours, Courtney.
Thank you. So this would be to fill a Board of Assessors vacancy resulting from the resignation of Caroline Atkins in March of 25. The assessors are requesting that the Board of Selectmen appoint Robert G. Cox to the Board of Assessors until May 18, 2026 town election.
Okay. Do you have any objections, Mr. Cox?
I was going to say, we should ask Bob first.
All right. So we really appreciate you stepping up to fill this opening. And I am going to move to appoint Robert G. Cox Jr. to the Board of Assessors to fill the unexpired term of Caroline Akins until March 18th, 2026, or the town election, until the town election.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Excellent. All right.
Did the board vote too? Yep, okay, just want to show, yep.
No, they don't want one. Thank you, gentlemen. You can start.
It's not meant to be complicated.
Yeah.
That's right.
You might as well do that while you're here. All right. And the next item of business here is to approve the issuance and other details regarding the general obligation bonds in the amount of $3,075,000 dated June 30th, 2025, and sign the related closing documents. And these bonds are in connection with certain items that were approved at town meeting for capital. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
So we're pleased to bring forward the board the results of our competitive bids that was done on June 17th through our financial advisor, Hilltop. And we're pleased to really announce that we had a very competitive bid process, and we received a pretty good interest rate on 15-year general obligation bonds of 3.4%. So we're here with the associated paperwork, answer any questions, and go from there. So
I'm curious, I don't know if they gave you this info, but do you know who the four bidders were?
Yes, actually in your packet.
Yep.
Take a peek.
Oh, I didn't see that page. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Another important aspect to note outside of the interest rate is that the town did receive not only a AAA issuer rating, but AAA rating on these particular bonds as well, which we're pleased to report.
Super. They just did that as a matter of course? Or did we request it?
I believe that is a matter of course.
Great.
For the issues, yep.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Chris, and Carl, as he's lost hurrah before retirement. And I guess we'll give Mike a little bit of credit.
Yeah, sure.
I was in the room.
Right. And he said that in the email. He took all the credit for this. The good news, for all the work you did getting the AAA rating reinstated for us as a town. I think the process that we followed was also really robust. For me as a selectman, and I've been a selectman for a long time, it was really completely transparent, and I learned a lot. And I think we should actually make it our process when we go out to bonds, because it was very, very educational. And having Hilltop as our advisor as part of the call was also really helpful, because they have an abundance of knowledge about the marketplace. The information that they gave us was really, for me, extremely helpful. I know you know a lot more about bonds than I do, but it was
the issuing side was very interesting. So I too learned a lot. I thought that call, and I agree with you, the process.
Right.
That's the way to do it. It's like everyone gets educated, everyone gets on the same page, and then you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I guess I should note for the public's benefit what projects are
that would be great.
borrowing. So we do have the Engine 1 rescue pumper, which was authorized at May 2023 town meeting, and an additional $55,000 was authorized at this past town meeting in 2025. So we have the Engine 1 rescue pumper, the Willow Street culvert replacement, the DPW salt shed replacement, the some remaining amount from the Claybrook Road reconstruction project, the town of Dover's portion of the Dover-Sherborne turf field, and also some additional borrowing related to the Dover Community Center project.
And I think it's important that people understand that this additional borrowing for the community center is not an over budget. It's just we're still within the parameters of the budget that we approved.
You don't issue the debt until you need the money.
Right, but you don't issue the debt until you need the money. And so this is just, the time has come, we need the money now, and so we're issuing the debt. So we've been very fiscally responsible with not issuing debt that we didn't need and not paying interest until we actually need to issue the debt. So I don't have any comments.
I don't know
other
if
than
Cam
to
has
say
any
good
discussion or
job.
comments. So do I
this
get
is
my
you-
big
you get
day in
your
the
moment.
sunshine? Or here we go.
Please.
Okay. I, David Haviland, as clerk of the board, move to adopt the votes prepared by bond counsel in connection with the town's bond offering for $3,075,000 dated June 30th, 2025, and incorporate the text of the vote of the Board of Selectmen into the minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Now, I don't think we need to.
Do we need to vote, Mike, or no?
Yes.
Oh, we need to vote on this, but not on all the previous votes.
Okay, so second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
I think we can just all say aye.
Wait,
We're
1, 2, 3.
so out of practice. All right. Thank you.
So that's it. And again, thank you to the whole team.
Yeah.
Yep.
This was a phenomenal outcome. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you to Melissa from Hilltop, who was here just in case there are questions. And there's the associated paperwork. So when the meeting is done,
Oh, we're gonna
I'll go see you
we'll
to
go,
sign
yeah,
it.
we have it here actually, so everybody can just
Oh, okay,
stay
great.
and sign what we need.
We're going to make Mona happy.
Yes.
All right.
Waiting to get it, but we're all set here. So thank you for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and congratulations on the successful sale.
Yep, thank you, Abby.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. And the next item of business, which is agenda item 1.3, and this is the appointment of Brad Rowan. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay. As a full-time police officer. So basically, this is to fill a vacancy on the police force that was created by the resignation of Officer Donald Cahill in May of 2025, so last month. Police Chief Joe Vinci is recommending that we as a board appoint Brett Rowan as a full-time police officer. Officer Rowan previously worked for the police department as a dispatcher and left to attend the Randolph Police Academy, from which he graduated on June 13th. So he's a recent graduate, 2025. You know, and again, I really commend the practice in the police department, you know, to hiring people that are already familiar with the Dover community and being able to bring on an officer that was acting as a dispatcher for us really makes a lot of sense, because it just, they have the history that makes it just a little easier
And the flavor of our community.
Right.
Well, just to add, I guess only Robin can take credit for this, but the board 2 years ago in the union worked on bringing Brett on as a dispatcher, because we do not traditionally have civilian dispatchers. It is the police officers that also serve as dispatchers. Given some of the vacancies and the desire for this sort of path, this arrangement was worked out with the union and is now coming to fruition, which is great for all the reasons you just said. So appreciate both the union and the board deciding to give this a shot.
So just a quick question. I noticed the agenda title is to appoint Brad Rowan, and then we've got Brett.
Yep, so it's actually Brett. Yes, yeah. Thank you for noticing that.
I thought maybe they called him Brad and he's...
Yeah, exactly, a nickname.
But thank you, Cam. All right, so I move to appoint Officer Brett Rowan as full-time Dover police officer, subject to the customary stipulations of the police department.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 So nice not to have to say your name.
Yes, it's uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. All right. So do we want to do this piece as part of our planning? The appointments?
Totally up to you. We had pushed this off a little bit just to give everyone a little more time. We identified the days that the committees typically meet at the request of the board, which I think was helpful. But yeah, if you prefer to defer it.
I was just thinking if we just, well, the planning just comes later in the agenda.
Yep.
So I thought this
Defer
could
it.
be an offshoot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at that point, we would have an idea
know what
of
we're gonna
who's
do.
doing what.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to move item 1.6 to the planning piece of the agenda.
1.4.
1.4. So far ahead. All right. So now, is Robin going to be here?
Huh? Look at this. On cue. That could not have been
We had
better
put
timing.
Robin towards it. She had a conflicting personnel board meeting,
Okay.
so she's perfect timing.
Perfect.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah, literally. Robin just asked, is Robin going to be joining us?
Otherwise, I thought I was going to have to.
Yeah, right.
If you'd like to, you can.
Well, I think you did the heavy lifting here. So.
Okay.
So allow me to introduce to everybody Robin Ticino, and she is our HR director. And huge asset to this organization and to the team. And for us as Board of Selectmen, she has really helped in the town administrator's evaluation process and made it look so professional. I was impressed with our own work. So,
You used a different spreadsheet, didn't you?
I did.
so I'm going to turn it over to Robin. So I'll describe a little bit the process, and then I'll turn it over. So the process we put in place, which I believe has worked well for us, and again, we're always eager if you have some suggestions for changes, is that each of us get the evaluation form, we fill it out independently, send it to Robin, who then compiles a combined evaluation. If there are things that either of us said that stand out, that don't make sense, she gets back to us to get a little bit of background. We were all on the same page this year. I mean,
It was the easiest page ever written.
Right. And so I didn't expect us not to be, but it was really good. And Robin did a great job pulling together our comments. So I'm going to turn it over to her to give a brief summary, and then I think maybe each of us can just add our own personal short statement at the end. Sure. Okay.
Okay, so before I begin, I'd like to express my gratitude to Dave and Robin. It's been a pleasure again working with both of you, and you both made the process so easily. They completed their evaluation independently, and I combined them, and then I'd send them back for any edits, and then now we have the final evaluation. So Robin, you just explained, I'm looking at my notes, how the whole evaluation process worked. But today I'll go over the categories which Michael was evaluated on, and the scale and what everything means. So the evaluation scale is a 5-point scale, with 5 being the highest score. 5 is excellent, consistently performs at a very high standard that significantly surpasses reasonable expectations. 4 is above average, consistently performs at a very high standard that significantly surpasses reasonable expectations. 3 is satisfactory, 2 needs improvement, 1 unsatisfactory, 0 not observed. I think I'll be a spoil sport, and I will give you your score. It's a 4.59. I'll start at the end.
I want to judge his card.
I couldn't resist. So the categories and average scores from the 2 evaluations conducted by Robin and Dave, it's worth noting that the board members shared very similar views in the comments in each section. The sections were management, organization and planning, communication, collaboration, staff recruitment development, financial management, and professional developmental skills and expertise. And the highest score you can receive is a 5, so 4.59 is. You're doing very well.
For a newbie. Which is hard to believe.
I know.
So I was only going to summarize the comments of Robin and Dave, but you know what? I thought it was very important that you hear what both of them had to say. So I'm just going to read the whole evaluation to you. 2025, under management, organization, and planning. This entails goal setting, daily department operations, individual projects and continuous improvement, administration, staff management, and resource usage. 2025 was a challenging and pivotal year for Mike and his team. He faced several complex personnel matters, including one at the Board of Selectmen level, which required careful navigation. Throughout these difficulties, Mike remained composed and professional, consistently demonstrating integrity and a strong commitment to doing what was right, even when it wasn't easy. He handles difficult situations with grace and professionalism, setting a steady tone during uncertain times. Mike's leadership shone through his ability to keep his team motivated and supported during a turbulent period. One of his standout strengths this year was his willingness to stand firm on important issues, reinforcing trust and stability within the organization and with town boards and committees. Despite significant distractions, he continued to advance critical town initiatives with focus and determination. He played a central role in articulating and executing the town's action plan in collaboration with the BOS and the ATA Finance Director, aligning major efforts such as electrical aggregation and online permitting software projects. These two initiatives in particular represented major accomplishments, with Mike securing key grant funding and shepherding them from concept to implementation. Mike also demonstrated impressive creativity and resourcefulness in managing internal operations during a time of constrained capacity. His decision to promote the assistant town administrator to a broader role overseeing finance operation and his restructuring of staff responsibilities helped keep essential functions moving. The addition of the new treasurer-collector has also proven to be a valuable step forward. Mike shines in the area of resource utilization. He effectively patched together just enough consultant support for the treasurer-collector and town accountant role, and leveraged the ATA finance director and other team members to navigate an extremely difficult period. In addition to managing forward-facing projects, Mike began to address long-ignored, high-priority operational challenges within the organization, particularly around critical work paths tied to key personnel. It's worth noting that the sheer scope of challenges this year, combined with limited staffing and time, meant that some initiatives progressed more slowly than planned or were temporarily put on hold. However, this was a matter of strategic prioritization rather than any shortfall in effort or commitment. Overall, Mike displayed steadfast leadership, a clear sense of priorities, and a deep commitment to the town's success. He should be proud of what he and his team accomplished in a demanding year. With continued support, he is well positioned to build on this progress and achieve even greater results in the year ahead. That was just one section. That was the management section. On to communication and collaboration. This entails creating and maintaining strong communication channels, engaging with staff, residents, and boards and committees, consistently informing residents of town affairs, and maintains relationships with external parties. Mike continues to excel in communication, leadership, and collaboration. He maintains a true open door policy with both the community and town staff, which has fostered an environment of trust, transparency, and responsiveness. His direct communication style, combined with a willingness to engage in both easy and difficult conversations, has earned him the respect of his team and the broader community. He is regarded as an outstanding communicator, providing regular updates to the BOS via phone calls, meetings, and informal check-ins as situations arise. Mike remains one of the most visible and accessible town administrators Dover has had. He attends numerous meetings beyond his required duties, holds regular staff meetings, department head meetings, and maintains a consistent presence across boards and committees. This level of engagement has helped build a strong relationship and improve coordination across all levels of town government. Chairs of various boards have noted how much they appreciate Mike's consistent communication and openness. His ability to keep information flowing freely has significantly improved collaboration and decision-making. A prime example of this collaborative success was the rollout of the online permitting system. Mike ensured that all relevant land use committees and staff were part of the process from the outset, enabling a well-coordinated, inclusive effort that met town objectives and gained broad support. The ATA Finance Director was empowered to lead the project, but the buy-in from all involved was a direct result of Mike's inclusive leadership style. Similarly, Mike worked closely with the Warrant Committee throughout FY25 to align on budget priorities early, which greatly improved the quality and clarity of the committee's presentations at town meeting. He also continued his engagement with Dover's senior population, walking through budgets with the Council on Aging and addressing questions and concerns in advance of town meeting. Mike's work extends beyond town hall. Under his leadership, the Selectmen's office participated in Dover Days for the first time, helping to increase the town's visibility and civic engagement. He also ensured timely responses to operational details, such as posting and removing drought signage efficiently. Another major achievement was his role in navigating the conservation restriction process with Hale. Working in coordination with the town council, Westwood, the trustees of the reservation, and Hale, Mike helped achieve the CR outcomes without the anticipated $10 million expenditure, an impressive result that speaks to his strategic negotiating skills and coalition building mindset. That said, the limitations of Dover's very lean staffing model, arguably too lean, mean that not every issue can always be addressed as thoroughly or as quickly as needed. This sometimes affects follow-through, particularly in departments like the DPW, where outdated messaging can linger and lose its impact, or new procedures may be implemented without sufficient vetting. With more bandwidth, Mike could take on greater mentorship role with the head of DPW, which would benefit that department and improve execution. The town newsletter has also gained momentum under Mike's guidance, reinforcing communication and transparency. His ability to juggle multiple high-priority initiatives while staying closely connected to the day-to-day pulse of town operations continues to be a major asset. Mike's commitment, communication skills, and collaborative leadership have had a significant and positive impact on the town of Dover. He has laid a strong foundation for ongoing progress, and with greater staffing support, his capacity to follow through and mentor department leaders will only grow stronger. The town continues to benefit from a steady leadership and forward-thinking approach. Okay, this is my favorite part. Staff recruitment and development. Entails quality hires, strong training programs, performance evaluations, and succession plans. FY 2025 brought plenty of twists and turns. It often felt like a game of whack-a-mole in the townhouse. Just as one issue was resolved, another would pop up. Through it all, Mike stayed focused on the bigger picture, especially when it came to recruitment and staff development. His consistent push for a full-time HR director has really paid off. The value of that position is now crystal clear, and we are lucky to have someone in that role who excels every day. Thank you.
This is why it's our favorite part.
Mike and the HR director have built a strong collaborative relationship. They do not avoid tough conversations and are both focused on finding solutions. That mindset has made a big difference in how we handle staffing issues. Mike has also shown creativity in how he retains and motivates good talent. Expanding the ATA position to include the finance director responsibilities is a smart example of how we think outside the box to keep strong performers engaged and growing. Together, Mike and the HR director have implemented a more thoughtful and structured interview process. The approach they used for the new treasurer collector, bringing the finalists in for a full day to meet the team before extending an offer, showed how committed they are to hiring the right fit, not just filling a seat. We still have several open positions, and there is more work to do in rounding up the team, but with Mike's leadership and a strong HR partnership in place, we are in a good position to keep moving forward and continue building a strong, capable workforce. Next, financial management. Manages the annual budget preparation, reviews financial metrics with BOS, ensures adherence to GAAP audit principles standards, develops financial information to support decision making. This continues to be Mike's weakest area. It is clear that he does not feel entirely confident in his financial knowledge and has to rely heavily on others. The challenge is that he has not had a strong bench to lean on. That said, his decision to have the ATA step into the finance director role is a smart and strategic move. They have built a solid working relationship built on mutual trust and respect, which makes collaboration in this area much smoother. What stands out is that Mike doesn't shy away from admitting when he needs help. He's comfortable bringing in subject matter experts when needed, and that willingness to learn and ask questions is a real strength. With the new treasurer now in place and assistant TA stepping up, Mike is starting to build a more stable foundation. There is still a lot of work to do, particularly around simplifying financial processes, addressing bottlenecks in the accounting department, and finding opportunities for automation, but progress is happening. Mike is putting the right pieces in place. With continued support and a growing team, he is setting up the town for better financial oversight and long-term stability. And this is number 5, professional development. Skills and expertise include municipal administrative knowledge, state laws and regulations, town bylaws, procurement laws and process, management technology. Mike has a strong foundation to be an effective town administrator with a solid grasp of municipal law and a growing expertise in Dover-specific bylaws. One of his key strengths is knowing when to double-check his assumptions. When uncertain, he proactively consults subject matter experts to ensure he is taking the right approach. This diligence not only strengthens the quality of his decisions, but also builds confidence among his colleagues. His thoughtful, collaborative management style is consistently praised by boards, committees, and townhouse staff, setting a positive tone for the organization. This year, we hope we can continue to work closely with the team and, where appropriate, reduce reliance on external consultants in a timely and efficient manner. And last but not least, other performance observations. What a year. As a second-year newbie town administrator, Mike faced challenges that many seasoned professionals might not encounter an entire career. Through it all, he maintained his composure, his sense of humor, and his collaborative approach. He showed his team that he is not afraid of tough conversations and that he has their backs, as long as they are doing the right thing. Despite the turbulence, Mike kept moving important initiatives forward. The successful regionalization of dispatch, especially after a major setback, was a standout example of how he empowers his team and stays focused on long-term goals. Other accomplishments like the launch of online permitting, the communications strategic plan, electric aggregation, and steps forward with DPW implementation all reflect steady, thoughtful progress. Just as important, Mike continued to build the foundation for the future, adding staff, strengthening his team, and setting the town up for success. While some things understandably slip through the cracks, the groundwork is there, and we are in a great position to build on it in FY 2026. Excellent job. Mike has earned 100% of his bonus. Thank you for your hard work, dedication, and leadership. Looking forward to what we will accomplish next together. Final floor, both my 5 lines.
I would have said 4.6. All I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a really, really tough year. And when I sat down to pull together everything we did, I could not believe what we accomplished in spite of all the setbacks we seem to have on a weekly basis. So, and we still had fun. I mean, at the end of the day, we had to laugh about some of this stuff because I mean, for such a small town, it's unimaginable all the things we had to deal with. So I'm really hoping this fiscal year is a little bit quieter, and maybe we can build a foundation and make some of these improvements that we so desperately, we can feel them, but we haven't been able to make any progress. So thank you to all of you. I mean, tremendous, tremendous year. So.
I have to say thank you again.
And bringing him up to speed. My God.
Yeah. All right, that's enough said, right? But you really have dealt with issues that most town administrators won't see in their entire career. And it was some pretty good curveballs. but you do stay calm. And what I enjoy is you're so easy to work with and you're so much fun.
Right.
And what I also love is now we're hearing feedback from everyone else who works in this building and all the other boards and committees, how much fun you are to work with, how great you are at responding, and you just make it pleasurable. And so that's a different kind of thank you, but thank you for putting up with all the Dover's unforeseen shenanigans. How about that? And then the final one is your I was going to say sidekick, but that's not the right word. So that's why I literally stopped mid-sentence. Thank you for bringing Chris into the fold. And I know I'm not alone here in saying it is really wonderful to watch how you are building the team, progressing, giving Chris more responsibility, allowing him to grow as a person and professionally. And this is just, it's the way it's supposed to be. And everyone in this town should know that we've really got more than one gem. We got 2 gems right here. And
we have more than 2. We have a team.
Well, there's only 2 here. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I was like,
4.
Well, I said here. What about here?
This one in green knows about a secret hiding spot.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So, but she's let the secret out of the bag now.
Gonna have to find another one.
So I'll just sum it up with how we started, and thank you again. It's been a great year to experience. It's been a great year to learn, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's been a great year to be a first-year selectman.
It was,
Boy.
I hope the second year is a little more
I'm
boring.
sure we can add the excitement.
I was like, sorry.
I prefer the calm.
Right.
We'll try.
But I mean, although as a newbie on the Board of Selectmen, I didn't participate directly in the evaluation. I heartily endorse everything that's been said. I think you've done an amazing job, and I get that feedback consistently from other people as well, and I really appreciate the methodical and consistent way you approach your work, and particularly that calmness of spirit that you have. And I think that's going to be a really big help to this town over the coming years. So thank you very much, Mike.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's very humbling, and I appreciate the professionalism you take part in this, but this is a very awkward thing.
It's so awkward.
Most employees don't get reviewed on camera for the public to see, so I appreciate the way you handle it and the professionalism. Thank you, Robin. But I think this doesn't. This, but it's important for me to say that none of this gets done alone.
Right.
And I am so fortunate for all our employees, particularly in this room. I won't keep growing Chris's head, but this is
Maybe
without
we should do his next year instead of
Yeah.
That's right, right on camera.
having someone that you can rely on and can trust to make the right decisions is just game changing. Robin and I meet once a week. On our calendar, it's an hour. I don't think we've ever gone for an hour. It's always more, and it's always multiple times a week because, as you said, for a small town, it's amazing how much goes through HR. Earlier, Carl joked about Mona. It is true. Without Mona, none of this happens, and so I'm so grateful and appreciative of her and all her help. So I really do appreciate it. And you alluded to this, right? It's true. Some days I feel like I just got here yesterday. Some days it feels like 20 years and I should be retiring. It hasn't even been 2 yet, which is so surprising to me. But it's been fun. It's been scary. It's been crazy. But overall, it's been very fulfilling, and I really appreciate it.
Unexpected.
Unexpected.
All the stuff that happens. We so do on a sleepy town. And, you just have to
From
put some
someone who knows,
modernization.
I think you should be thankful that you've still got ahead of you.
That's right, exactly.
My wife does tell me the gray increases since I started here.
It's not the gray you worry about, trust me. So.
Well, have you noticed pictures of the presidents when they enter the White House
Yes.
and when they exit the White House? Big difference. So with that, I'm going to move that pursuant to Section 6 of the agreement between Dover and the town administrator, dated June 7th, 2023, a bonus of $10,000 shall be awarded to Mr. Blanchard based upon his fiscal year 25 performance.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
And now we have Board of Selectmen updates. I don't have any.
I don't have any either. It's been a very slow week, uncharacteristically.
Yeah, I don't have any either. I haven't even been here the entire week. So.
There we go. We just saved some time.
Yep.
Do you have things, Mike?
So as you said, I always have a couple of things, but as you said, we just met last week, so I don't have anything real.
That's why we don't have anything. Right?
Yeah, it's been a week, so I have nothing particularly substantial. Just to mention that, as we kind of alluded to, but for the public's benefit, this week is Carl Valente's last week here in Dover. We had a nice send-off for him earlier today, and we're all just so appreciative of him and what he's given the town over the last 6 years. Dave didn't mention this, but I don't think you did last week. We started the Fire Chief Search Committee, and we'll be meeting again tomorrow.
I think it is tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So that process is underway, and again, that's for our first full-time professional fire chief, which is exciting. Our housing RFP is live. I believe Robin mentioned that last week, but just it is due July 3rd, so we're hopeful to have some good responses to that, and our housing task force will meet to evaluate that and hopefully award, because again, this was from not this past time meeting, but the 2024. So we are excited to hopefully have that be successful this round and be able to award that.
Have more than one.
Yes. And I believe I had to jump off the personnel board meeting early, but I believe they voted to approve our new town planner, who's going to start on Monday, July 7th.
That's great.
So that's really exciting. I know Carol's very excited. So that's all good news. And that's all I had.
And so I think we'll do the consent agenda and then do the planning part of the meeting. Okay, so, wow. This is what happens when you meet every week. We only have one item on the consent agenda. Approve a 2025 special one-day liquor license for September 20th. So I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that one. That's safe.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And I.
After last week, we only have one to sign. I mean,
That's because last week there were like
20?
Yeah, it was very close.
Right.
Next week we'll have more.
So this looks like the original. No, because the blue pen is just, okay. All right.
It looks like the original as well. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it used to be you signed in blue so you knew it was the original, but now with color copiers and printers, it doesn't work anymore.
All right.
Watermarks.
Yeah.
So now we're just going to do the planning piece for the agenda. So I think we've been doing this for six years now. And we decided when we put a more formal evaluation process in place that it was unfair to evaluate a town administrator if we didn't communicate what the goals and objectives were for the town and agree to those ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we started this process, which has, I think, been very helpful and useful. It helps prioritize, special type projects.
It was very helpful last year.
Right.
So
But it also, it keeps our modernization efforts moving forward. And, you have to keep in mind that along with these, there's daily jobs for everybody as well. So, and many of these are just carrying over because a lot of these projects are more long-term, so we may have had a goal up to a certain point. Like, for instance, the online permitting system, we just started it, so it will get completed next year. So,
Right, but to have it on the table and go through with the support of everybody.
Right.
So the board has a couple documents just to help you. So one is horizontal paper that you have. So that is, so the one, that one is the last, it's actually the last 6 years. So the one on the top is last year's, the current, it goes back to FY20. The other document is a pretty rough draft that includes goals that we receive from the selectmen, ones that, I've taken note of, it's things you've mentioned throughout the year, even if it wasn't on your list, I know we've talked about it. And I tried to develop them into different categories that I thought were appropriate for this year. As Robin said, at least for last year when I participated, we usually at this meeting to kind of review this, flesh it out, think if there's things you want to add or subtract. We'll come back at the next planning session. We also send this out once it's in a good spot to board and committees who weigh in, either in support of things or things maybe you've missed or aren't thinking of that they would like you to consider. So when the time's appropriate, we'll do that as well.
Right, and we always run into the issue of what's a goal versus a task.
Right.
So we try and be more up here.
Right.
Right.
No, that makes complete
Right.
sense. But then we may well want to start considering what the tasks are.
Right,
Support.
Yes.
Right, and we've done that, like Mike and usually works with his team, mostly Chris, to kind of outline the details.
Yeah.
All right.
Looking forward to your guidance on how we approach this.
So I think we should just, so in the past, I believe we've sort of tried to put them into broad categories, which you've already tried to do.
Just some suggestions,
Right.
just to give you a starting point.
Right.
And we can, if you want to add things or not, we can condense them, we can change them. It just was a starting point.
Right. So under finance, some of these are tasks. So this is where I always run into issues.
Or for a goal, you could just elevate them all and say to
Right.
ensure that our financial policies and procedures
Or
are
up to date.
right. Something of that. Because I think we all know, you're right, there are tasks,
Right.
but some of them are pretty big tasks.
Right. So I would say the first three, maybe it's just overall review and update of our financial policies and procedures.
Yep.
And I think those are tasks we want to accomplish.
And then we also should determine, is the finance working group going to tackle it, or does the full board want to tackle it?
Right, and that might be a recommendation from you, Chris. Then the I think the Collins Center, that is a more of a strategic kind of goal, and it fits in with our overall modernization of our processes, because what we're going to get out of this is a tool
Right.
that we can hopefully leverage and tie into
The model.
right? And I'm hoping it leads to maybe a model that is just a little bit easier to make some of the changes to.
Yeah.
But that model that Carl built is phenomenal.
It's a good model.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it has everything in.
Yep.
So and then
But it's also a roadmap on how we're going to deal with capital requests.
Strategically,
Yes,
long-term,
yes, yes.
and it's going to tie into the overall debt strategy for the town. So, I mean, this is a very strategic initiative.
Yeah. I think to summarize, it accomplishes three things. One, the end result of the tool.
Right.
Helps us navigate the funding sources for this big venture capital. And two, it really does establish a new process for the application and review of the projects themselves. So I think it hits on a lot of different things.
Right, and I'd add one last thing, because what's really important is never to get ourselves into this position again. So once we figure out how to pay for it, how do we begin to plan to save for the future?
Right.
So it's all part of it.
And also, so we're not even in any way ruffling feathers. We're obviously going to keep the same standing committees involved in whatever of these are appropriate.
Correct.
So there's no usurping here.
Correct.
Right. Now, the Blue Book review and update.
Some more warrant committee?
So it is. I think, however, we envision part of that is the staff being more involved in the process to assist the warrant committee. So you're right. I mean, ultimately, that's a blue committee. It's a warrant committee's responsibility, but we kind of included it in that it certainly is going to be a priority of ours to assist them and, work alongside them. Similar to how when we did the town meeting review, right? It was multiple bodies involved, but we all came together. So I envision that would be pretty similar. The moderator, warrant committee, selectmen, the various committees.
Agreed.
Yeah. And one of the feeling in the warrant committee, having been a member up until a couple of months ago, is that we've sort of got into this process of just trying to reproduce what was in the Blue Book last year with a few updates. And there seems to be a lot of content that isn't necessary there. And maybe we're missing content that really would be appropriate. And so we wanted to do a more fundamental review of the whole process, of the whole development of the document. And then the other question is, how do we present it? I think the feeling on the warrant committee has been that over the longer term, it would be desirable to move as much of this online and using tools such as Tableau or some other online tool to enable you to drill down into the data much more effectively, so you really only get the original view as the high-level summary, and if you're interested to drill down into it. I mean, that's clearly something that we have to align very much with the financial management processes in the town. But I think that's a longer-term aspiration in terms of really making the Blue Book a modern document and not just something that's reproduced every year because we've always done it this way.
But some of the standard wording, for lack of better, the same wording that's used every year, that can be redone once very well. Mm-hmm. And then use that, and maybe a word or two gets tweaked every now and again.
Yeah. I think it's less just the wording, but more, we've got all sorts of tables in there that I'm sure that nobody ever really looks at, and we've just reproduced them because they were there last year.
Right.
And so I think it's much wiser for us to really take a harder look at it and say, what is the information that we want to tell the residents of the town when we go to town meeting, and is this document living up to that goal? I think that's
understood.
Pretty much,
yeah. Well, we're all in agreement, so it needs to be done.
So for me, this is a bigger goal, and it's sort of like a goal in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I would call it an overall annual budget process.
Yes.
Of which this is a key element. But my dream, where I would like to come out, is that this whole thing is automated.
Yeah.
So that whatever we produce for our own planning, there's a set of tables that just go into the Blue Book. So it's not extra work right at the end when there's all this other pressure to prepare things for town meeting. Mm-hmm. So for me, what I would love to do for this is sort of at least this year, have as a task, work on a standard calendar, a work plan, working back. Because no matter how much we plan, it always seems like this is like a last minute thing that you're scrambling to complete. And I think the key to that is automation. But I think it's unrealistic to think that we're going to get there in the next 10 months.
Yes.
No.
So I think we should have this overall goal of a budget process, in a sense, where capital is going to this long range capital plan is going to feed into it ultimately, with the idea that the end game would be, because it's so prone to error. You're taking something out of here, cutting and pasting it into there, and then cutting and pasting it a fourth time. So, I think when we do this Blue Book review, if we could kind of think about it more, and I know there is no way we're going to, if you do this right, there is zero way we can get it done with all the other things going on in the next 10 months.
Absolutely.
But let's think about that as
We could
the long
stage
range.
it, though. We can do
Right.
some of the physical of the Blue Book, the new printer,
Right.
if necessary, and get it all,
Look
that part
through
automated.
it, right, and say, do we need this? Do we need this? Do
Yep.
we need this?
Right.
Um,
And the other part is there's a lot of the content that's there at the moment that can be set up front,
Right.
not 2 or a month before,
Right.
but we could do that maybe 3 or 4 months before, when we know largely what is the structure, and just prepare drafts way in advance, so that then we're just approving the stuff rather than struggling to get through it.
Right.
Why that's so helpful, Cam, is one of the issues with the Blue Book is that there are so many authors. So the grammatical style, the abbreviations, all that stuff doesn't match because it's not one author.
Yeah, right.
And if that's put in advance, someone could go through
An
and edit
editorial
it
process that we could
and make it
clean
all the
up.
same.
Yeah.
Right, and I know there are people in the community that would be willing to work on, helping write it better without the numbers in there. But I think that would be, for me, it's going through it and saying, what are we, so town meeting is twofold. The big piece of it is how much are we going to spend and how are we going to pay for it. But then you have all the other stuff as well. So it's just, how do you present to the community what our financial health is? Because I remember probably 15 years ago, we were going for overrides, and you would call people and reach out and ask them to come to the meeting. And somebody opened the Blue Book and she said to me, where is the override? What am I voting on? What is your deficit? And I was like, wow, she has a point here.
Yeah.
The funding sources are different.
Yeah.
So that's why I love that summary that we put together in the presentations.
Yes.
And I think that might be helpful to include in the book, the Blue Book. And then again, my whole goal here is not to have Chris have to re-input things, because it's just prone to error.
Right.
No matter how hard you try, there's something that doesn't add up.
Yep.
Well, if you take the model spreadsheet, which is constantly updated, and then once there's a final, it may not be that, but there's got to be a document that is working towards the final. All that info is going to go into the Blue Book, but if you're the keeper of that document, and then when it comes time to send it to the printer, here's the file.
Right.
So,
and we made huge progress this year getting the budget together early. I thought that's definitely the way to go, because it helps put into perspective where we are, what we need. I think it would be good to update the links to that front section and even change it if you think there are things that need to be changed, so that we can work off of that, and that the links aren't broken, and then you don't run the risk of me doing stuff.
But it's neat. So, I mean, how do we it goes under finance and.
It goes under finance. I just think it's more than Blue Book review and update. It's like putting together an overall
Budget
plan
process.
for the budget process, and
Culminating in the town meeting and all the
right.
stuff.
And I agree. Probably the first thing is the Blue Book review.
Okay.
But-
No, and I think one of the things Chris and I have talked about is we are really excited about the capital plan and process. And if it goes as well as we think it's going to go, the next phase we think is our operating. And there are.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah,
say
so I
that.
mean, Collins offers that. Other groups do. So we could go back out and kind of replicate this process for operating. A 5-year forecast for operating, which we haven't done to help anticipate,
Right.
like we do with capital. So we
The
again.
model which is supposed to do that, but
And it does some of that,
Right.
for sure. But we think that could be a really good way to. And there's also, to Kim's point about the Blue Book and have it be more interactive, a lot of communities are now using online tools for visual budgets.
Yeah.
I know the Warrant Committee had a lot of fun this year using the state has some visual data
Right.
to compare towns.
Right.
We can bring that to a local level, and people can play with that with the graphs, compare year over year, and it's an amazing tool.
Right, and I think, we should consider part of this whole planning process, what are the software tools that we need
Yes.
to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And I think a software-based approach is much better than a paper-based approach. So
Agreed.
somehow we have to work out what's available there. And yes, to your point, Mike, I hardly endorse that. And it's a great
Agreed.
approach.
We're aware of some of the products out there, but if we look at the online permitting as an example, to draw a comparison is that what we're learning through implementing this is what should we do in
Right.
terms of
Right.
how things are set up, how it's configured.
Right.
I'd imagine we'd have a similar experience when we try to do one of these financial models, is that this is what everybody wants to what people are interested in and what other communities display as well. So
Right.
it could give us some inspiration.
And one approach to that is sort of taking a sort of classical software development approach where you get the what people want
Minimal viable product.
and then go for the minimal
Yeah.
viable product and have a list of things you're going to add to it going along. And I think
Right.
that's a very effective way to do it.
I think the challenge here is I don't think people know what they want, and the biggest challenge is you have very few people that are actually engaged.
Right.
I mean, that's
And
what I
one of the
find
ways of
so
doing that is to
frustrating.
produce a minimal viable product because
Yeah.
people recognize that's not doing what I want it to do, and they
Right.
start understanding how you can how it needs to be enhanced to meet the goals.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Right. But everything ties back to how do you get the community
Yes,
engaged?
yes.
And, maybe you just never get the community engaged because we're doing such a good job that they don't have anything to engage over.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, we've had plenty of lightning rod issues that are before the town, but that's the only thing that gets people out. It seems to be one and done. And so once we get them there, how do we get people to stay engaged and be involved in the more mundane years without a lightning rod issue?
Right. Right. How do you get people to care about what their tax dollars are? As long as you have a good school system, I feel as though that's all they care about.
Yeah.
Well, if the tax rate went way up, we might get a different answer to that.
But one of the things we've had a lot of success in is sharing kind of bite-sized pieces of things over social media, right? People engage with, so, when we have this sort of visual presentation, we can share bits and pieces. And Chris it's amazing, the tools that show the engagement, how many people click. And yes, if you give them a whole Blue Book, sometimes it often just goes over here because it's too much. But if we could feed them pieces over time that accumulate in a larger understanding of why we do what we do, how the budget works, I think that could be really effective.
I tell you, but we struggle to get a quorum for one night. Needham is typically running 3 or 4 nights. Nantucket had 1 year had well over 100 articles. They had like 170 articles. So, I mean, just looking around, whenever I see a town report in a different town, I pick it up and I look, and I'm gobsmacked at what goes on. Yeah. So they're getting community engagement, and they're getting it over multiple nights. And some of it's representative, but some of it's open.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, well, Needham has the representative.
yes. So.
All right, so I think,
Finance is definitely a goal. And how you
right,
want to.
and I think we can, and these are multi-year goals.
Yes.
And I think if we just break it up into, I can't even begin to tell you how much progress we've made, but.
Yeah. But what I also like is the way we're doing it is that everyone in this room and others get to come, listen, get educated, and then you have the facts to make good decisions by it. I love that process. And these are all going to lead exactly to that. So the tasks are outlined, how you want to put the goal is.
Right.
Right.
We can play with that.
Right. And the other thing is, for the first time in many years, we've had a very engaged warrant committee that they're asking, what can we do to make a difference? They recognize that there are improvements that can be made, and I think they're more than willing to be part of the solutions.
Agreed.
So the next one, I don't know if it's a goal. It's certainly a desire. Open the Carroll Community Center. It should happen this year, but yikes. If you don't want to make that a goal, then you can just remove it.
We've already got that goal in progress for this year, right?
Right, so I think it's a continuation. I think I would add, not just open it, but
Optimize the way it's going to be utilized.
The way it's going to be utilized.
Yeah.
I like that. That's because.
I was just talking to Janet Claypool, and just her and Mark are already just working together. They brought in Bethany from the library. They're really thinking, and what Janet said, one of the things they're just admitting to themselves, open it, start doing things to figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work, and then say this is our process, because you just have no idea how it's going to work.
Because I saw this under a heading of infrastructure and facilities. For me, it's much broader than
like
just
community
that.
engagement almost,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Well, actually, you could drop it right down to the last category.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because, well, first of all, Mark deserves a huge shout out along with Janet, because they are, they're engaging the building committee with active, okay, if this, then what about that? And it is that thought process that is going to make that opening so much better. So,
right. And I think all along the concern in the community was that this community center was going to be special interests. But I really think this is going to be the community center we hope for.
And we should make sure it is that.
Right.
yes.
And I was saying to Janet, you should have like this safe pedestrian crossing to the library, because the library is all concerned about losing people, from their programs. But if you had the safe passageway,
It's actually a good idea.
because
Sidewalks coming.
well, just through here, I mean, a safe pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
Well, it's
So
going to
that-
dovetail with rail trail, and it's going to dovetail with the whole
Sidewalk
sidewalk.
project.
Right, the whole
Where's it-
town square kind of thing. And
Yeah, that's
also there's
true.
the town
That's
square
right.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, like for me, this is an added opportunity. You have a program for 10-year-olds at the community center. Maybe the library has a program for 6-year-olds. So the parent doesn't have to drop the kid off. You can just walk across the street, right?
Right.
And you have both of them, because you're only here for an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And it
So-
goes into energy,
Right,
you
yeah,
know,
that's-
lowering our carbon footprint.
But it might be well worth putting the town square project as part of
Yeah,
the planning and development thing as well.
no, I
It
mean,
makes a ton of sense. It's the
Right.
town square, and it's safety, and
Because I know it's been on people's minds for some time, but it's been sort of pushed back for other
Right.
reasons. But
well, if I have my
it's
orientation
worthwhile
right,
actually listing it.
we need a good crosswalk right about there. And
are you pointing to the Legion to get a beer and then go over?
it's pretty close because you've got the sidewalk going down, and then
But it is-
you're going to go to the library.
You've got this mishmash of roads that you've got to negotiate and all the rest.
Right.
So somehow making that safer would be
Right.
an aspiration.
But if the rail trail's going right through there, I mean, there's a whole bunch. So this
Yeah.
is definitely belongs in that town square,
Right.
Yeah.
MBTA, sidewalk,
Yeah,
safety.
exactly. Yep.
All right.
So I know these messages I put on climate and energy, a little bit of flow of consciousness stuff, but I think the point that I wanted to make is
This
that
was you, Keith?
Surprise, surprise. Well, I mean, I think the only point I wanted to make is that we need to have some sort of plan of what are the actions we need to take to try and meet that state imposed goal. We haven't really had the opportunity to consider that up until now, but things like, you know, planning for transport, reducing the fuel carbon footprint of our transportation systems, and how do we expect to be able to reduce that carbon output that we're producing over the next 20 years?
Right.
And I think we need to consciously think about it, because it's all like those motherhood and apple pie things that you just keep putting off. But I think in terms of providing a sustainable future for this town, we need to be able to consider those things.
Well, and a shout out to Kevin. He got that grant to do an electric vehicle, and so
Yeah, no, that's a good first step.
that's a good start.
But I'm thinking of somehow setting that up as a town goal, that we do have some action plans on how we're going to approach that, and that feeds into capital budget planning and all the rest.
So I really, when I saw this, I felt as though it really.
Yeah, let's just
Yes.
go and just grinding his
No,
old,
I
old
thought
axe.
to myself, this fits in with the sustainability committee
Yes.
and their goals and objectives.
Mhm.
So, and then I was trying to think, well, how does it tie back to us as a town, and how can we help direct that with them?
Yeah, my picture there is that we set a high level goal, that we have some principles or objectives in all of this, and then we define the tasks, or together with allow sustainability to help us define the tasks that are needed to get there.
Yeah, so maybe that's an overall goal, and the first step, it has been the creation of the sustainability committee. And then, you know, the way they're set up by having members of capital, and then maybe we talk to them and have them set like a goal for this year. So maybe the goal is, well, they can tell us what can be accomplished.
And you're much more up on this than I am, Dave.
Yes.
But my impression is that they're trying to come up with an action plan of
Right.
what things need
They
to be
are,
done.
and they've been struggling a little bit because a lot of the elements of sustainability rest with all these different
Right.
land use committees and capital budget, and with various difficulties with his eyes, he was unable to attend.
Yes, he
so
couldn't attend.
we're going to have to ask capital budget to assign someone who can really go to that that committee.
I've been pushing him on that too.
Right, and then I was even taking a step back, like, how can this be, so it is a goal of the town, but I'm not sure how to hold the team accountable for moving this forward. So can you think about do we have somebody from your team, Mike, be a member to this committee to make sure the stuff gets done? Or,
Or that at least it's communicated out to the other departments what the goals are and what their role in it might
and maybe
be.
the new town planner, this is something, because this really falls under that, and it's a way to get the town planner to be a part of your team.
Because you're one, I mean, to me,
But you guys just have some, I don't know how to
yeah, I did have
hold you accountable. I think it's a really important thing, and we need to start building the infrastructure. But we need to figure out how we get the pillars to talk to one another.
We need a high enough level goal that is communicated out to the other boards and committees. Because here's one that's going to come out of left field. Cam, when you were on warrant, you and I spoke about this. The Chickering School roof is coming up as a capital project. Okay, well, you put a new roof on. That's a perfect time to put a solar system on that roof. And that would create so much power for this town. Now we've created the power that is going to lower the utility bills commensurately. But if we're going to start then bringing vehicles on, what I don't want to do is you buy a vehicle, it's more expensive and there's no payback because we're buying that electricity from the grid, aggregation or not, it's still expensive.
Well, aggregation's 12 months down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this solar system would, but that's the whole point. It's we're looking into the future,
Right.
and I had a conversation with a friend yesterday in stark realization that our solar hot water and our solar voltaic are completely paid for, and it's free now. Mm-hmm. And that's a great place to be in. And if the town was getting that kind of power for free, it's a bonus and a half. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, we'll leave it to you guys to figure out.
Yeah, so we have some ideas. So, as you mentioned, I appreciate your awareness. A lot of this is really important, but it is very spread out. And, Chris was mentioning that, there are, there's a climate action plan many towns adopt.
Really,
and there's even there's even some funding available, but I think we've had some issues accessing it, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, so we can look into that.
Sustainability missed the grant window by like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what I knew there was something. I just couldn't think of what it was.
It is there, and they're definitely going to move forward and get it.
Yep. And that would encompass. It's a climate action plan would be very broad to encompass all of these pieces that then we could figure out how to implement, how to start checking them off. Prioritizing which ones we target.
So. It's like a long-term goal, and just how can we?
I think a climate action plan. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I don't know the workings of it too well, but might give us a good baseline in terms of measuring what we have right now.
Right.
And an action plan really should be defining tasks that need to be accomplished to reach those goals.
Right. How do you know how you're doing if you don't know what your baseline is?
Yeah, that's a good point. And sustainability would love to do this type of work. Mm-hmm. It's right up their alley, and so maybe I could beg you to join the next sustainability committee for the first 15 minutes, and we'll just ask to put you on first, and then that will show them more commitment, and that would be appreciated on their end. So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk, Chris, between the two of us. And I know, I think somewhere on here, actually, someone might have mentioned grant writing. And,
yes.
We don't have one. Our department heads try really hard and are often very successful. But I know I had the opportunity to connect with Anna Nagy from Sustainability and our MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission or Committee that Dover is a part of, and they actually have some opportunities where they'll assist with things like climate action plans, the MVP grants, to help us write the grants and review grants before we submit them. So again, this is what they do. So that's another avenue as we pursue this. Perhaps that's a better resource, which I think historically we've not really tapped that group to help us, but it is a free, so it's a free resource.
And the MMA is another possibility.
Yes, yep.
All right.
Thank you for sending that on, by the way, those documents.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the second one within that sort of general category was We keep getting issues with our water supply, and I'm concerned that we need to have a plan. What happens if the aquifers go dry? There are towns in Massachusetts that are already subject to that problem, and with global warming, that's going to increase. Now, that's not necessarily going to impact Dover, but the problem is that since everybody's on aquifer-based water supply, if that somehow gets contaminated or the water flowing into it becomes a lot less, and the water coming out of it becomes a lot more, we might get ourselves into water challenges. And I know we've been trying to do something about that in recent years, but I think we need to have a sort of a goal of what do we do in an emergency situation. And we also have real problems in presenting this to town meeting, because people who are on town water supply are having problems now, as you know, with water quality or colour and all those other issues. And the Aquarian is proposing connecting it to the MWRA, the wider water supply of the metropolitan area. But the challenge with that is that people are concerned about having tap water available because it might encourage further development that we're not particularly happy with.
Well, that's the direct collision.
And it's a collision, all right. And then you've got people, the 75% of the towns that are on wells don't give a damn about what's going on with town water supply as such.
Au contraire. Because we're worried like our well can go dry.
Yeah.
So
But anyway, I think there's a complex of issues here that we need to somehow try and have a plan for. That's
Again, I think the sustainability committee needs to really weigh in here, Cam. But if the goal is to meet the state, do they have one for water?
Mm-hmm.
Just
yeah.
So I think I need to remind you both that there are a whole bunch of things that we have done and continue to do. Mm-hmm. So we have monitoring wells.
Yep.
The reason we have those monitoring wells is for exactly that reason, mm-hmm. to be able to address the water table in Dover. One of the things we could do is look at all the town-owned lands and maybe drill a few more monitoring wells. I think we're not good at showing where those monitoring wells are. There's certainly a trend mm-hmm. that because they're shallow, the monitoring wells, that in the summer months they tend to go down a little bit, but they recharge. And even
absolutely.
But this past drought, Carl had said to me that they took longer to recharge than they have in the past.
And if we get a 10-year sustainable drought, then we might have some...
Right. So just the fact that we're looking at it, so what we did is we said the best thing you can do is water conservation. And that's when we put the bylaw in place. But there are other things we can do because the largest use of water are irrigation systems.
Exactly.
And some towns like Concord actually require that you register your irrigation system with the building department. So, I think the next step really here is to look at how can we enhance the bylaw that we have. Right. Like I've noticed in my neighborhood, but I'm on aquarium water, so it costs you money. People are letting their grass go brown. It's also aquarium water is very good at, sending out things mm-hmm. early on, telling you to conserve. Right. For us, the challenge is the 75% right. of the town that doesn't give, and there are exceptions to mm-hmm. the rule, but a lot of the town, you have to remind them we're all sharing the same water. Right. And it's water, and it's bad quality water. And, that's what I think people don't realize, and you know, maybe there is an opportunity somewhere else on lands for Aquarium to or their successor to get another well field. You know, certainly when we did that original study, we said, if the aquifer runs dry, worst case scenario, what can we do? And basically the only thing you can do is tap into MWRA water. And because we have no distribution system,
Right.
it's like a $200 million
project.
investment.
Right. No, that's the thing that worries me, and it's
Back
not
to the
beyond the
funding.
bounds of possibility that might hit us in 20 years. And so I think if we do some serious thinking about it going forward, it's well worthwhile. And I certainly appreciate the work that's been done
Right.
so far, Robert. I think the biggest weakness of those at the moment is you're measuring availability of the water supply, but you're not measuring how much water is being taken out.
Because we can't.
Well, there might be ways to look at bylaw changes that at least assist us to get a much better measure of it. For example, with new construction, we might have a bylaw that says all new buildings have to have a measurement of the water being taken out, not for payment purposes, but so we can monitor them. We could houses on resale, we might be able to do that as well. We might be able to get volunteers to have their water usage monitored. So we get a much better demand side evaluation. At the moment, we're not getting that at all.
So to bring this
Other
back
than-
up to goal, okay? 'Cause
So the goal, it falls under this climate and sustainability, and a
Agreed.
piece of that, it's not just carbon footprint,
No,
it's
it's-
also water.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we need to build on where we left off
Yeah.
from,
Agreed, that's the
Right.
goal, is to address this,
Right.
working with the sustainability and other land use
Right.
committees. What can be done, not only in times of stress, but
Well-
at all times to preserve our water supply.
right.
Yep.
Well, all our resources, right? And I think, you know, there are things you can, you know, we got the town used to the first bylaw, although a lot of people don't like the reminders, but I mean, what are you going to do? I think just reminding people has had an impact.
Yes, I think so.
Without
too.
a doubt.
And for the first time this year, I think people are starting to realise that, oh, I've got well water, but that doesn't mean that I'm relieved of obligation to conserve water.
Right.
Right.
During these last two droughts, I think people really began to understand, like,
Right.
whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, you know who's cheating and who's not.
Right.
Is it
So for
a brown
instance,
lawn or is it a green
right,
lawn?
We
So-
pulled out our irrigation system.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and in our flower beds and vegetable gardens, we have a drop.
Yes, we've got.
That's all we do right there, same thing.
Right.
And trying to reduce the size of lawns
Right.
and
Well, we have a
designated
lot of
areas
lawn,
and so
but
on.
it's turning yellow.
That's right.
It was always a
Good.
challenge to make
Yeah.
it look good.
Yeah.
So there is a way to word this, Cam. We're just going to have to smith it
Yeah,
and
exactly.
make sure that we're
And that's
working
what I'm
with.
saying. I
So
think this is flow of consciousness
I think
and
it
not
fits
really what we want to
under
put down.
under sustainability, and I think it's just expanding. You know, looking at various options. For,
Yeah, well, you know what? We could have a joint meeting with the Sustainability Committee. They would love that, and then we can come up with.
I think there's one generally planned, isn't there? Isn't there?
Well, I think the next step is to pull it together. Ask ChatGPT how to word this.
I got to tell you my story with Jim Ravetti first.
Yeah, well, I had a conversation with him. He's right. All right. Then we have planning and development, right? So
No, I think we
yeah, we
already
all agree on that.
touched that one.
I mean, I felt badly that the website update was just like the final bullet because it has been a huge, you know, as part of the communications plan.
Right, right.
It's one of our major
Right.
channels. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I got this weird email solicitation. You probably got it too from Unibit. Did you
Oh
get this?
yeah,
about how they drilled down and couldn't find things on our website, and they're going to help. They just for a few hundreds of thousands.
No shortage of
Right.
services out there.
I don't have anything to add.
The only thing I want to mention, there is a second page, so just not the last, but I just wanted two things that I added on there. One is Purple Heart community. So that's not a major lift, but I thought it was important. The request came through the Memorial Day committee and some of the people that participate in Memorial Day considering Dover looking to become a Purple Heart community. What it does is basically it's a recognition the town makes of the importance of honoring Purple Heart recipients, and particularly those that live in town. And generally it's signified by a proclamation that you would adopt. I believe it's August 7th, making that Purple Heart Day in Dover. And then often there's a ceremony associated with that on that day as well.
And there's a sign.
There is a sign, yes, there is a
Needham's
sign
got one.
when you
Yeah.
go into communities.
I always wondered what that meant.
Yeah, so that's
okay.
that's what it is. The other is an age-friendly community, which I have not had a chance to talk to Janet about this, so I will before if you do consider adopting this. But basically, it is it's another committee, just what you need. But it's another committee, age-friendly committee that looks at ensuring that the community is a welcoming and livable place for older residents, so that people can continue to live here as they age. And it's things like buildings, like our community center, so we're already accomplishing that. Other things like transportation, housing, social participation, communication information, health services, social inclusion, things like that.
So we do a bunch of it, but this is great for
So we
Janet,
do, but
right?
it basically brings all that together, all the different groups that do those things, and again, it's a formal recognition for the community that we're doing the right things or identifying what we're not doing,
I like
that we can continue to
And-
try to
But
focus
And I
COA
like
could
that
handle it.
Janet can take care of it.
Yeah.
Like she can be the
I think,
champion.
yeah, exactly, right. Obviously, we would support
Right.
the process significantly, but I think it could be something that she could spearhead.
So the one with the Arbor Day sign, those signs, that
Yep.
pole is then going to have Purple Heart and
An
then
age-friendly, correct.
So I love it.
We're gonna have to get wooden plaques.
You're right.
Enter Dover.
That's right. But good ideas. So staffing is putting the elephant on the table, and obviously it's going to have to go through the budget process and a town meeting. But what I'm thinking of specifically, you mentioned earlier, which is the grant writer, and getting someone in here. And the idea is that they would pay for themselves in spades. And I look at it, what Kevin's doing at Highway, what Chief Vincey's been doing at the police, even Chief Wright has gotten a lot of grants. I mean, it's $1 million worth of money coming in for free. Mm-hmm. And that's $1 million every year. And if we got a grant writer, how much more could we get? I mean, could we double that?
One of the issues we have to be concerned about, if we don't approve the MBTA
Right.
process,
We're not gonna
we're not
get
going
it.
to get it.
We wait until after that vote. That having been said,
Yeah, and I'm also very in favor of exploring this. The only caveat, and not to poo-poo anything, but is that those grants do bring additional work, right? So having someone getting the grants, we then, and I appreciate the other piece of this is what appropriate staffing is, but there is work that comes with the grant as well. So just trying to balance that.
well, they would have to, that would have to be coordinated through.
Yes,
you.
yes,
But
fair,
yes,
fair.
the idea is go get a
You've
grant.
got infinite resources.
Right.
Yeah, right. No, but it's in sustainability was asking for grant writing help.
Yes.
And a lot of other committees have mentioned it as well.
Absolutely.
And so the idea is that person would pay for themselves by the grants that are submitted and then granted. I mean, just to me, it's a no-brainer, but it also will help us with the entire budget process. And some of the grants will just improve the community, whether it's green, look what they did with the community center. That was a nice little offset that came in. Maybe that's the next one on the Chickering School. I'm just speaking out loud.
So I think, which has been a long-term goal, is just human resources and making sure we have the right people and making sure that we use consultants, when recognizing we're a small staff, we sometimes need subject matter experts because you just can't hire people. But, if there is the need for a certain role, to make the argument to town meeting fulfilling that role.
Right.
I think succession planning we've talked about that. And the classification and compensation, this is done every 3 years by the personnel board. And they get an outside consultant to look at like towns.
Okay.
And they compare all of the,
Super.
yes.
By chance, do you know where we are on that cycle?
So it's on here because it is this year. And that one benefit is, we already half joking, but we're serious, of benefit having an HR director is they still will use a consultant, but to a significantly less degree, because she's able to do a lot of the work internally, which is really great. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, the thing with that is we used to arbitrarily kind of come up with COLA, and the COLA was supposed to also be the pay increases, and you were never sure if you were really in the market or not. And then there are also some soft things that make you more of a attractive place to work.
Like work hours?
Work-life balance and those kinds of things. Not working on Fridays. So, so I really like the new process. That it was painful. It was really painful moving to this new process, to get these studies done more frequently, to really make sure we're a difficult town to compare ourselves to. Our titles don't necessarily, or haven't always necessarily, reflected what the responsibility is. So we had to go back. I'm not talking about we. The staff had to go back and figure out.
And traditionally, most communities use things such as, the first go-to is community size for comparison. Well, if we do that, our towns are all out in Western Mass.
Right.
That don't pay what this area needs to attract and be competitive. So it is a difficult.
There's just a few. Lincoln. But point well taken. Yeah. But it's a process we're going through as a matter of course.
Right.
And I just think of hiring Joanne. I mean, after 3 searches, we had a pretty good idea what people were looking for, and then we finally got to the table and had to make a small adjustment. So,
And I think that's what we've gotten a lot better about. Before, we were never willing to make the adjustment, and so now we realize it's a competitive marketplace. To get the right people, you need to pay, and when you're willing to do that,
and you get really good people who are both professionally and socially or whatever. Sure. It helps. So
agreed.
Good. Then we have ongoing special projects.
And Fire Board of Engineers needs to be added to this list. Did I miss it? No, FBE.
I'm sorry, for what?
The ongoing projects. I don't know. It's certainly not a goal, but it's a task that we have to hire the new fire chief.
Oh, all right. So I think we're crossing 2 things. So they are on the committee assignments.
Got it.
Yes, but it wasn't under your goals.
Because it's a committee assignment.
Right.
So.
All right.
But that does lead into the committee assignments.
Right. So
it's a good segue.
It's a good segue.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Now I got to find committee. What do I do with it?
I think we can just leave it like it is, can't we?
So I am willing to do either warrant or capital, because both of those need a heavy lift.
Right.
And I feel as though capital gets shortchanged
Yep.
if you're on warrant.
Yep.
And we had no choice this year.
Right, I agree with that, Rob. Robin, and I'd be prepared to do the other one.
Okay.
If that would work.
As long as one of us is taking half that burden and learning the
Okay.
process, I don't care which
So what
one.
do you
Yeah, well,
think?
see, I was in two minds about this because I've been on the warrant committee for
Right.
6 years, and I've been on the capital budget committee for 4 years as well. And so I'm familiar with that, and I could comfortably take that on. And I don't think it'd be much of a burden to me. But I'd also like to get a sense of, get brought wider into the town and a little bit away from the financial stuff. But having said that, I'd be quite happy to be involved in one of those committees, among other things.
Okay, so me too. So which one do you want? I don't mind.
Well,
We can draw
Look at the day of the
straws.
week too, because there's others that, I've got to drop my Monday for planning board.
The other part of it is the capital budget is going to be dealing with all this Collins planning stuff as well. So that's going to be
That's another consideration.
a bigger lift.
Yes.
Right.
Now, one thing that I can offer is that I can be available during the day if I need to be involved in any of the actual discussions with the Collins group. So it might make sense for me to do the capital budget, but I don't feel strongly, Robin. If you have a preference,
Are you willing to stand up to because that capital needs to get revamped. And
It does need to
Right,
get
okay.
revamped.
Yeah,
I'm
so then I'll
prepared
do
to.
warrant and you can do capital.
Okay.
All right.
So flipping down then to the next one is planning board, because that's also on a Monday night.
Okay, and you can't do Monday
I can't do
night
Mondays this
anymore.
year.
And that's a big lift too, right?
It can be with like MBTA, and they have enough that comes on. I tell you, I have learned a ton attending those meetings.
Do you want to continue doing it?
I would love to, but I can't because
Okay,
I'm chair of
yeah.
an outside board that
You're
meets
in
on
the-
Mondays, and I can't shortchange them this year.
The problem is capital budget frequently meets on Monday.
Yeah.
But the planning board is not every Monday,
It's 2 a month.
2 a month.
So if you could
You
get,
know, and that's one other thing about capital, it needs to have a regular schedule.
It does.
It needs what? I'm sorry?
A regular schedule. It's like sometimes it's Monday, sometimes it's Wednesday.
well, we agree, and we'll have to work with them to,
Maybe I could convince them to change the capital budget meeting to Thursday.
When we are not meeting, because we meet, yeah.
Yeah, too. Or Wednesday would be up, wouldn't it? No, that's warrant. But no, that's not going to work. Because the warrant committee has to have its representatives on the capital budget committee. So they can't occur at the same time.
Okay, I'll do planning board.
are you sure?
Yeah. I've never done it.
Oh, well then,
It'll be a new experience for me. Okay.
okay, well, I got to do something. So the 3 to 5?
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. And
Sustainability, will you keep doing that?
Unless Cam wants to take it on.
no, I don't think I would.
Okay.
Simply because Patricia's on that committee, and I don't want that sort of conflict.
I wanted to offer, didn't know how you were going to.
Yeah, no, I think that's not appropriate.
All right, so I'm happy to do that one, and thankfully, they were meeting on Mondays, and they have switched to other days,
Okay.
which helps tremendously. And then the building committee is
Hopefully
on
that goes-
Monday nights, but let's hope, but I'll finish that up.
And
The working group is also something that I'm going to reinstitute when.
I'd be happy to do the open space.
Okay.
And the housing task force.
I like doing that, and we meet like 2:30. every
last
last Wednesday of the
Wednesday.
month.
If you like it, and
Yeah.
because there's,
And it kind of ties into the
Longer.
planning board.
Yeah.
board
Yeah,
and-
yeah, that's
right.
what I was thinking.
Thanks for Robert.
Exactly.
Do you want to take the water groups, Cam?
Yeah, that would be good, but I would
Somehow that's connected to sustainability.
tie into
isn't it?
sustainability.
That's why I didn't, may I ask Mike, is there a water group committee that's
No.
meeting?
So not currently. There had been for the study that was done, but there has
Okay.
not been anything meeting.
But I think it
That should be
fits
merged into
under,
sustainability.
That's-
right, I would
Yeah.
just
Bingo,
move it
that's,
that way.
yeah.
MBTA advisory board.
Okay, so this is like, it's a state thing.
Yeah.
You can read the minutes. It's
Yeah,
like
there's not, I don't know if
Friday
any
month.
selectman has ever really, we've always had a member assigned,
Milliken.
but I don't think
It's me.
anyone's in history has attended.
Joe Milliken was very active.
Okay. But this is regarding transportation. So it's distinct from the Communities Act. It's about, buses, trains, trolleys, all that stuff.
Which just miss us, so.
Yes.
Right.
The only
I think
contact
we're.
we have is this MBTA's Community Act, right?
Right. I think it's just simply our geography that we're assigned the group, but so we do need someone to take it, but I would.
I'd be nominated.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Seriously, we just have
Yay.
to look at the minutes.
because your emails are annoying. Okay, so that moves down to sustainability.
Dave, I'm giving you the finance working group.
Yeah, sorry to put that down.
Okay.
And then fire chief, I'm also involved in that already.
All right. So Cam, do you want to do the contract negotiations with the school or the cross-street Chickering sidewalks?
I'd be interested in the cross street chicken
Okay, all
sidewalks. Unless you feel strongly about it.
No, I've done this. They all know me at the school.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The only thing is I may show up at a couple of those meetings
Oh,
if
no.
someone is going to, if there's ever a comment on what the school committee or the school building committee did and how we didn't think about it, we forgot about it and all that, I just would like to be able to weigh in because I was on both those committees and it was not ignored, it was
So
thought
I
about.
just realized this. All of our last names are H.
Wow.
Because I was putting down people's initials.
I did not know you have some
Yeah,
read that.
yeah.
It just never stuck out to me.
Right,
Huh?
right.
That's interesting.
You're the first. H-A.
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
D before N.
That's right.
Hunter Hudson.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
So we'll refigure this and send it back out and make sure it still looks okay and appropriate.
and then the nights are the biggest thing, is if you have two obligations on the same night, it's a problem.
Right, but we shouldn't need that now. So.
Right.
And we could, as
See
soon
what
as
negotiate.
we get capital, just have a regular, I think it would make everybody's life
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
And Dick Melton would be willing to join that.
Yeah. What about David Billings? You got him on?
He's on my
something?
housing task
Okay. He's already spoken for? Day late and a dollar short. So,
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
we all done with everything? I guess we are.
Yeah?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.